All right, we're back on.
All right. So I have questions, obviously, but I think I do think that it's important that we get through some kind of basic material, and then we can open it up for discussion and take some questions from the this lovely ensemble that we have. Thank you everyone for being here, by the way. It's just wonderful to see so many shining, intelligent faces. Um, Metsa, so we were talking in the live stream about one of the things I think that's important to talk about is the proliferation of or the popularity of plant medicines in the Western culture. And as I was saying, I think it's overall a very, very positive thing. And I think it speaks to the awakening that we're undergoing right now as a species and as a global culture. But there's some pitfalls along that path. There's definitely some perils as people come in and want to become practitioners and want to shortcut that process and be impatient about it. And you talk in the recordings that I've listened to about um, the pace of nature and things take time and you obviously did your time with very deep dedication and commitment. What do you think are the consequences if someone gets into ceremony with a practitioner that is not ready to do that? And the follow-up question to that would be, how do you vet your practitioner?
It's a complex conversation. And, it's a context conversation also, because ayahuasca comes from many different contexts. So it depends which context you want to operate from and which context you're talking about. If you talk about the Santo Daime, which is a church that, was born in Brazil, the relationship with the guides or the priest, I would say, in this context is different than an ayahuasquero who is brought in the Shipibo tradition to become an onaya or Ibwe, which is a particular kind of practitioners that, train in a certain modality. And for probably the Taitas of Colombia, it's different than for the Quechua than for the Chayahuitas or the Aymaras, or, and that aspect is important in itself, and also what is that the people want to be and how do they want to represent themselves and how honest they are with how they represent themselves. I think it's also a problem. In terms of danger, first we always have to honor the fact that if we are an ayahuasquero, we sit behind that medicine. And so the danger is mostly maybe coming from how much medicine we're taking or how is it given. If it's reckless given, if it's given with conservatory approach and mindfulness and care, and the people that are in the front of the medicine and just thinking that it's because of them that this or that is happening are certainly, I think, confused, at least in their ego, related to the fact that we're first and foremost at the service of the medicine. And that's one aspect that is important to say. Someone with very little knowledge and very little exposure can maybe have the capacity to hold a space that is very kind, with care and love and compassion, and just be at the service of that medicine to touch people in a very deep level. And someone with many years of practice who's just really rooted in an ego, megalomania, relationship with self are going to really mess up the people because they're just going to pass on some sort of twisted messages because they think they know something. So I don't have a straight answer for you. I think for me personally, in my own trajectory, I start to take myself seriously very soon out of ego. And then I realized after 15 years that actually I didn't know much. And then I started to become really a practitioner because I was able to master some of the techniques that my elders and the lineage that I was following were talking about, which is really the capacity of diagnosis and reading the energy in the context of the journey of ayahuasca, which is not always the context by which ayahuasca operates. Some other people are just creating, like I said, a place of music vibration, love and kindness, experience, and just are really watching that the people are safe. My practice is much more involved as a practitioner in trying to amplify the healing through your presence and through your capacity to channel, diagnose, interact, lift, untie, and clean, clear, manifest positive vibrations that elevate the field of consciousness and the body vibration of the participant.
Thank you for that. Can we talk about wisdom context for a moment? And what I'm thinking is that I've known several people who have done a lot of ceremony, and speaking specifically of ayahuasca, but other things as well. And it has been my perception at times that some of these people come back and they have a hard time taking what they saw and integrating it into their life in a meaningful way. So we peak, and this could happen with a spiritual experience that wasn't psychedelic induced. This could happen with any type of experience where you peek behind the veil and you have some connection. You see what's on the other side. You get a glimpse, and then, as I think this is common human experience, come back into daily life, and because there's no, or if there's no wisdom context to stick that to, or to help make meaning of it, then people can be actually depressed when they come back into their daily life, because they're like, that was amazing. I want to know more about it or spend more time there. And yet I come back here and I've got bills to pay and I got to go to work and blah, 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 blah. And so I've experienced and heard before that it's helpful to have a wisdom context, some structure to stick that to. And so and I've heard you talk a bit about the context of the culture, understanding the culture that the medicine came out of and the lineage that it's being administered and came out of. Is that the same thing is the having a cultural context as well as maybe setting the appropriate environment through dieta? Are those things that will help someone be able to integrate an experience into an actual change in their life?
I think there's many things to take into considerations, And the first thing is to really notify that we are in this particular transition where the kind of experiences that we can go through and the kind of expansion and feeling of oneness or belonging or really shattering your own being that we can go through doesn't really have a point of reference in the everyday lives that we've built so far, and the system or the value system that Western society at large operates under. And so that to take into consideration and to prepare oneself for the landing, in the case of it could happen to you, is a smart thing to say. And I think I talk a little bit about this in the Metsa series and all those different propositions that I made, to the public to listen to as mini podcast. What are the systems that you can put in place before you experience to make sure you're going to be okay? Like, do you have a community that can embrace you and receive you? Do you have time to spend time with nature and to just to let also the vibration of nature and the rhythm of nature kind of, provide us sort of a blanket of integration, jump in cold water streams and be in the forest, meditate and land and take your time, because one aspect of integration is sometimes non-cognitive. There's nothing to understand. There's nothing actually to integrate from what we understand, integration. It's just to arrive and just letting nature, letting, life somehow take care of the experience itself. And there's nothing maybe that you can understand. Again, I use that term bandwidth before, we have a certain operative system that we work with in everyday life, our mind and how we perceive and our filters and our interpretations. And then when you take a substance that boosts your awareness, your capacity, you know, you have this stretch. And then you come back and you're just all shaken up. And you can't fully understand and assimilate all the information that was passed on. But also the acceptance of that is part of the integration, and the trust that, you know, it's going to take time. There is a process in itself that takes place, but you really think upfront of the conditions that will, in the eventuality that you go through, something like that, take care of you. And then there is a lot of really good people out there that have had a lot of experience, that can coach you through, that can help you understand what you saw, what is the nature of the experience you're going through, because there is also archetype kind of experiences, you know, of ego death, or facing the shadow side of nature of yourself, transformation, trauma revisiting experiences, and all sorts of different things, or encounter with some beings that seem supernatural. And I'm going to go a bit radical, which I tends to be in these conversations, and with a bit of humor. But one of my teachers said, 70% of ayahuasca vision is bullshit. And there's only 30% of truth, And so how do you find the truth in all that? I think it's important to be surrounding yourself with people of experience, discernment, that are grounded and rooted. And where are you going to do that experience too? What is the context and the community with whom you want to be working with? Do a little bit of your, background studies before, making sure there is, safety and trust, and the values that are held in this community corresponds to values that make sense to you. So the more you can think about it that way, the more you're going to create optimal conditions for what you're talking about. And a lot also has to do with the amount of medicine that you take and how much medicine is given to you. So knowing your sensitivity, discovering your capacity, arriving at those kind of experiences gradually is to create protocol of safety for your own, I came in those experiences myself with having a lot of experiences with altered states. And so I felt I had zero mileage with ayahuasca, but I had the capacity, Not everyone has the same sensitivity and capacity. And my second ceremony was absolutely extremely strong and beautiful. And it was somehow an easy thing for me to navigate. But I went through many other experiences that were very difficult. And it took me a minute to ground, surround myself by people that understood what I was going through, and and stay close to nature and anchor myself in very pragmatic, simple things, not trying to put 2 by 2 together, but trusting that there's a process in itself that needs to kind of digest.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. I have one more. I have a couple more topics. Well, let me ask you one more question, and then we'll cast out to the people on the call and see if anyone has some questions for you. Can you talk about the importance of dieta and what that means?
So dieta is understood in different, I think, context again. There's a dieta in preparation for the ayahuasca experience that, depending on the practitioner, can vary, and there's a lot of information out there. Some people are more strict than others. There's a grand line of understanding around that. You want to be sober as much as possible in the terms of no alcohol, no cannabis ideally, or no substance abuse, no medication or pharmacology that could be contradictory to the ayahuasca experience. I think in the clinical studies today, mostly antidepressant drugs such as AMO inhibitors or SSAR, which tends to increment the serotonin level in the brain. And it's also one of the after factor of an ayahuasca experience. And the feel good, experience because it balances and levels your serotonin. And so if you're already under a protocol of serotonin, you can have an overflow of that, which has some dangerous side effect. And you just want to eat healthy, and always to think over the fact that you're going to put something in your body that's going to be like moving around and, boosting your receptors and your perception. And so you want to be building a good foundation and receive that substance in the best way possible. So not have any sort of interference. And ayahuasca in particular is extraordinary because it also clears out and cleans up any sorts of substance that is in the way. So, for treatment of addiction in that case, it's powerful because it helps the detox. It detox your body, but it also detox your mind, detox a lot of different aspects of our, identity. And then there is a dieta that is related to a certain practice of ayahuasca in the vegetalismo kind of context, which understands that there is consciousness in plant medicine and there is a sort of a hierarchy in the plant kingdom. Some plants are more like plant master, we call them. And in the Western European heritage culture, such as mistletoe or oak or elder or willow, that have all those tales, folklore, of the fairies and the beings living in the trees. And that folklore is very much part of the liveness of the Amazonian belief still. And plants like Renako, Kijuwi, Kikame, Bachufa, Yakusisa, Chirixanango, Chusanango are plants that are considered medicinal plants and master plants, meaning that you can learn a vibration, a consciousness, an energy if you put yourself under certain conditions to receive that from these plants. And that's a dieta. It is a dieta that it really as a cornerstone for the training to become a practitioner in plant medicine, vegetalismo, ayahuasca, healing arts, which is the path that I followed myself. Meaning that the dieta is really at the center of the practice. And for the first 15, 20 years, 10 to 15 years of your practice, you're going to be dieting plants quite a bit. So the internal alchemy and the internal energy of your body gets infused by this plant energy and plant consciousness. And it's like building a battery of plant energy. And then when you drink ayahuasca, you can tap into that battery, into that power, into those resources that you express through the singing and through your intention into the room to the participants. So it's a way to just gain access to equity, energy, and then you can just use it for the benefit of the people that come to receive healing and support because you are in a different vibration when you drink ayahuasca and you have access to a deeper field connection, connectivity.
Amazing. One more question and then we'll open it up. And that is what is meditation? How has meditation come into your practice and changed it? How have you integrated all that together?
Well, I understand meditation really as a practice to drop in and just to let go of the buzz of the mind, but also to listen deeply to what's here because you're not so distracted by your own activity here, and to anchor yourself in stillness. And so it's a muscle that gets strength through practice. And when you drink ayahuasca tends to accelerate even more the mindset and, the emotions of the fear. And so having yourself rooted in a meditation practice allows you to just drop in, be fully attentive and anchored into the effect of the substance without having your own mind and your own projection and your own, busyness get in the way of what could be revealed by the experience itself. And so it's a good practice. And I think it's almost like we have an obligation as Westerners to meditate and have a meditation practice, because we're in general very busy in the mind and make all sorts of ideas and, preconcepts ideas about this, about that, etc. And so to build a certain resilience and a discernment, meditation offers that. It's quite extraordinary.
Yeah. Thank you. I swear to God, just one more. I want you to describe a little bit what happens in your online experience.
In which experience?
In the online offering, the 7-week course, Being and Becoming.
Oh yeah, and so Being and Becoming is really, I found an extraordinary opportunity for people to learn about indigenous practices, but also in the cross-cultural of those cross-cultural pathway of those practices. We are teaching and talking about Qigong, which is a Chinese practice and internal martial arts about feeling the energy and building your capacity to orient yourself, anchor yourself. We are talking about meditation, but we're also talking about plant consciousness, preparation for psychedelics, all sorts of substance. But we are engaging from the wisdom and the knowledge of the space itself. When you enter in an experience under the influence of a substance, again, you enter in the space of vibration where you become aware of an experience. And a lot of time, there are teachings, there is an awakening, there is a perception of something that comes to your attention, that is there, that becomes, true, that becomes alive. And has to do with the liveness of nature, of the presence of the field, and that doesn't go anywhere. It is here all the time with us. And it's part of what the indigenous people talk about. We're all related, it's all connected. And they're not the only one. And so Being and Becoming is an opportunity to have access to techniques and be together in this inquiry, how to tap into the field and operate from that sense of connectivity to the life force that is around us.
Fantastic. By the way, I talked to someone on this call, Carrie Munn. Hi, Carrie. And she said that when she took that course, that it was extraordinary. And also she said it was very well facilitated, which is a big compliment coming from her, because she is a professional facilitator.
I think it.
That's right. Okay. So does anyone have anything that they would like to toss at Metsa?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. Hey, Dennis, how's it going?
Great, thanks.
How's Wales?
Oh, it's actually it's starting to dry out. The rain is slowing down.
Good. We'll be back in August.
Yeah, but hope to see it. Right. I have a question about diagnosis. Now, diagnosis means different things in Western medicine and Eastern medicine. And mental health diagnosis is a whole can of worms, which has got a really bad press. So could Francois explain what he means by diagnosis?
Well, there is a set of information that exists in the reality of the psychedelic experience that is a sort of a framework made of lines of colors and energy and fractals and patterns, which is the typical kind of way that is described when we talk about an ayahuasca experience, for example. And it could be the same with psilocybin, so I'm less familiar with psilocybin in themselves, like I have less been exposed. But in the context of ayahuasca, as you are participating over and over to ceremonies, the point of reference that you have with this setup is established, and you have like an understanding of how it looks like when there is a healthy kind of experience and nothing is in between or nothing is influencing that framework. And when you bring in a participant or a patient to focus your attention towards the field, that picture changes. And then the picture is transformed by the presence of the patient. It's quite extraordinary, actually. And then you can see the different constellation that exist around that persona. And through experience and practice and conversations with your peers, then you start to recognize the patterns that defines certain disease, a certain pathology, or certain issues, or certain blockages. And then you can define a prognosis in relation to that. And that's basically a sort of an X-ray of the energy field of the person, if I may say, you know. And then the healing in the context of ayahuasca, to go a step further, is that then you start to, I guess, put your attention and concentration and bringing in songs that carry healing energy, because they are kind of invoking the plant diet consciousness that you have assimilated and all the cultivations that you've been through into the field of what you're perceiving. And that vibration is kind of going after what you're perceiving and trying to modify it depending on what needs to take place to amplify, resolve, and untie, and modify how it looks like for a more healthy, uplifted kind of vibration.
Cool. Dennis, thanks for the question. Hey, Amy Jo, I'm reading your question. I have questions about your question. So you want to jump on and just ask?
Sure. Hello. Yeah, I was curious. We have similar backgrounds in Dakota, so it's nice to meet you finally. I'm curious on or peyote or DMT or whatever path you're choosing to take. I've done a lot of drug work, I guess I'll say, and on I think 3 occasions now, the plant has actually told me no, we're not letting you in today. Where guides have told me that you can get there without this plant medicine. You have the skills, and it basically, even though I will have taken the same amount as someone sitting next to me, will have 0 effects on me. I'm just curious if you've come across that or have any thoughts or wisdom around that situation.
Yeah, no, I think, you know, I'm not saying this is the only way. I think I'm just here to talk about what I've experienced myself and what is in my trajectory as a practitioner. The more I go further in the practice, and actually the less I need to drink medicine in ceremony to have access to information. It really depends what I want to do and how it feels like. There is a certain amount of leverage sometimes that you have in terms of energy access when you are more into a journey, because there is so much, you know, power in the journey itself. But you mentioned peyote, for example. The medicine people around peyote that I know, they do the same thing, but reading the fire and the coals. They take the peyote so they can have access to a wider bandwidth, and then they just talk to the fire, and they look at the patient, and they look at the coals, and they can see what's wrong, and they can tell the patient what's going on. In the sweat lodge, the elders, they look at the rocks, or they talk to the grandfathers, or they talk to the fields, let's put it like this, and they have an impression, they have information that is given to them to what's going on. And a lot of people that are intuitive, they just, you know, have a capacity to just feel the field of energy. And so at the end, it's universal. I think there's different tools that give kind of the same and different type of information. And it's always so important for me to cross information, you know, and that's, I feel very fortunate in a way that I was around experienced elders, and I was able to talk about what I saw, what did it mean, what they see. And a lot of time after ceremony, which was cool, we would compare visions, we would compare information, we would compare, hey, what did you see and what does that mean and how do you do that and how does that work, you know? And that's the conversations that is important, I think, for our culture of people that are involved in energy work, to make sure that we're not also tripping out and just assuming that we know something. And who actually is going to check you out? Are you being checked out? Is there a lineage behind you? Are you talking to elders or people who are more experienced or different practices to make sure that what you're saying is accurate? And it's very important, that more and more we can build community and healthy conversations, so we can make sure that we don't get confused.
Ahome takoyasu.
Oh.
Hey, Amanda, you want to clarify your question that you just popped in to the chat?
Sure. Hi there.
Hello.
I just had a question in regards, so much of ayahuasca lineage and the way ayahuascaros work is reading someone and working with their energy and helping to clear things. A lot of the work that I do is very much putting it back to the participant as far as their own innate healing intelligence is like a big tenet of the work that I practice. And so I'm just curious, in your sessions, do you give it back to the person in the medicine to find their own way, or are you consistently working with the energy in the way that you see it to clear it?
I think, again, it depends on the context. It's hard to really define like this universal ways of working. One of the big law, I guess, holistic medicine is every patient has its own universe and its own complexity, and so depending on what's emerging at the moment in the treatment and the circumstance that you're in, you just work with what's given and the information that is emerging at the moment. And also the medicine and its own consciousness, so it's not up to me. A lot of time I want something for someone, or I see that there is something to be done. It's not given for me to do. And I also have to accept that, my own limitation as a human being. And some people just want to stay sick. Some people also just don't want to transform what needs to be transformed for their own healing. And there, the medicine is going to teach them, and it's going to show them eventually when they're ready. And so there's, again, different case scenario. It's really hard to give you a straight answer, but it is true that some people can't resolve certain things, and you have to help them and do it for them to a certain extent, and then it liberates something, so then they can become aware of something bigger. And in other cases, you're totally hands off. You're just basically here to just contain the space and make sure that it's safe. And you just let the medicine provide the information and guide the patient. Now, it's very important also to say that there's many different contexts by which ayahuasca is used. And this particular lineage is particular to certain indigenous people. And also that in this lineage, back in the days, people would come to see a practitioner and not drink ayahuasca, but they would come to be seen in the context of the ceremony and go home with a diagnosis, to bathe with certain plants, or to clear the house with certain things, or to follow a certain dieta with all the medicines, and eventually to come to another ceremony, and eventually to take the medicine. But we Westerners are also in this inquiry, in this research, in this thirst of experiences and understanding, which is great. I mean, those tools are being placed to us so we can experience them, but they have their own rules and their own dimensions that needs to be understood and respected. So I just also want to bring this forth, and give those different perspectives.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. Anyone else have anything that they would like to ask Metsa? All right. Wow. That was awesome. That was a lot. I'm really glad that this is recorded so that we can go back and look at it. Now, normally I keep this on my website behind the paywall, but if anyone on this call would like a recording of it, just email me, david.knox@theevolutionary.life. I'll make that available to you. And I'll send you the secret YouTube link. And with that, if there's nothing else, I want to say thank you so much. If you guys are interested in spending more time with Metsa through his online course, the link is in the show notes there. The course is called, or the online experience is called Being and Becoming. You guys are all amazing. I love you so much, and thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, David, for this opportunity to be with you all too, and for inviting me here on this platform. Very grateful. Thank you to the medicine too.
It's an honor. All right, guys. Talk to you later. See you next time. Bye.